V'hinei, now we come to the next step. Calls everything we spoke about till now. Hu inyan Hashamyim ve'eretz da'achshav. This is all heaven and earth of today. Shetzarech liyas tchila b'chinas eretz rotzei, v'achar kach mekabeles mebchinas Hashamyim hashuv. Where we said that Chazal say, our sages say, at least one opinion, that earth precedes heaven. So when we say that earth precedes heaven, it means spiritually that Ratzoi always precedes Shuv. As mentioned and explained, that the word Eretz is a very interesting term. And the Medrash says, why is Eretz called Eretz? Why is land called land? From the word she desired to do the will of her creator. She responded, ratzasa from the word ratzain, and also from the word rat. She rushed, she desired. Ratzain is desire, ratzai is rushing, longing, yearning, racing towards. But then the question is, heaven also wanted to do the will of its creator. I mean, everything should be called Eretz. According to this Medrash, what's unique about Eretz that it wanted to do the will of its creator? It's a beautiful explanation in the word Eretz, that it comes from the word Ratzin, but then everything, I mean, every star should be called Eretz. The heavens also responded very nicely. Everybody responded. All the creations responded. So, it says, Vayihi Chen, it was. So this is what the Maamar says, that there's something deeper here. That there's something that's created precisely in the environment of Eretz, earth, which represents a form of separateness, of perceived detachment. Here there is a new yearning for attachment, which is what Ratzah is. And this is the whole avoid of the person, as explained, Hachayis Ratzah v'Shoif. And it's always first the Ratzah, which then initiates the Shuv. As he puts it here, first you have the Eretz, and the Eretz is followed by Shamayim. Shamayim is mashpiyah to the Eretz, right? We always know, like heaven gives to earth. Like it says about Eretz Yisrael, Tar Hashamayim Tishtamayim. The rain that comes from heaven will give you water. So Shamayim is mashpiyah. Shamayim gives to Eretz. We say in the morning, Hamachasa Shamayim ba'avim, Hamechan la'aretz matar. He covers the heaven with clouds and it prepares rain for the earth, which is the flow that allows earth to live, to be irrigated, to produce all the produce, all the vegetation which allows life on this planet. So Shamayim is mashpiyah to Eretz. Or as he said at length, Shamayim is makiv de Eretz, it envelops the earth. So this represents the hashpah, the flow that follows the Ratzah. The Ratzah is halah, it's the yearning, it's the longing. Ruach, aisi ruach, va'amshich ruach. The person's ruach, the person's energy and spirit produces a ruach. That's like the rain, the shashpah that comes from heaven. So the Ratzah brings a shuv. Ratzah is the yearning to transcend, as explained at length. And shuv is the ability to return and embrace and accept and celebrate what is. But it's not in a way that it's a contradiction to the Ratzah, because the Ratzah is, I want to leave, and the Shuv is, no, you can't. The Shuv is a response to the Ratzah. That's what he says. Shamayim comes after Eretz. The Ratzah allows that the Shuv should be enriched by the Ratzah. There should be a Hamshacha. The person should be able to experience the divine truth in their space where they are. That's what real acceptance is. It's not a compromise. The Ratzah creates the Shuv. The Shamayim follows the Eretz. Yeah, that was the main point that he discussed. The first part of davening is Ratzah. Shemon Esrei is already the beginning of Shuv, Baruch Atah Hashem, where you're focusing on your needs in the physical world. And then even more it's in the learning Torah after davening, and even more it's in the mitzvahs and the physical activities throughout the day, which is literally dealing with the world on its terms, within the realms of the world. That's all the Shuv after the Ratzah, but it always begins with Ratzah, because Ratzah is the soul being free from any container and any confinement and experiencing its true heartbeat, what it really is looking for. That's the Ratzah, and that's Dafke in Eretz, because of its nature. And then comes the Shuv, which is from Shamayim. And then he focused a lot on the idea that Eretz versus Shamayim is like a mustard seed. Kegalgal, kegargir chardal. Legabe the merchav, the space of Shamayim, which includes here, we speak about heaven, it represents the entire space of the universe that envelops planet Earth. So planet Earth, relative to it, is like the size of a mustard seed and even smaller. We just don't have a better word for it, so we say a gargar chardal. And that's what the Alter Rebbe explained. That was the hafla de kavar, the Maida de kavar, that the whole ratzoi, legabe the shuv, is like a mustard seed, legabe the expanse of the universe. How can you say that? The reason is because the ratzoi is the yearning of the soul, the shuv is Torah and mitzvahs, which is God's divine, and Hashem's chachman, Hashem's ratzon. So the entire ratzoi is kegargel charda, like a mustard seed, legabe the shuv. That was the whole nikudah. Hashamyim kisi aretz adayim raglai. The heaven is your throne, a seat. A seat brings you down. Haaretz adayim raglai, the earth. Hadayim raglai is the footstool, which lifts up the legs. And that's the idea that Ratzai lifts up the legs, which represents the soul. Brakara da'avua. Im tashiv mishabas raglecha. Asayis chafatzecha b'yam kachet Shabbos, you bring back the legs. Aliyah leregel, shalish regalim. You lift up the legs, that's the Ratzai, which is especially focused Shabbos and Yom Tov, where the person is less engaged in the shuv and more in the ratzoi, less engaged in the material world and more in the transcendent world. So it's a mechaya, vata mechaya, it's a mechaya, right? And then there's the shuv hashamayim kisi, which is on contrary. It's hamshachim al. It's coming down. It's bringing the divine infinity in a lower space. Va'ata kadosh yoshev, you sit because of Tehillas Yisrael. This was some of the main points that we learned. So now the Alter Rebbe finishes. This is all heaven and earth the way we talk about it today. Ratzoi and Shaif. And that's why the Gemara says in Chagiga, according to one opinion, I think it's Beis Hillel, Eretz Kadma l'Shamayim. Earth precedes heaven, which means spiritually Ratzoi always precedes the Shuv. Ratzoi is the momentum, it's the passion, it's the eagerness, it's the yearning, it's the chukka, it's the desire. Mili b'shamayim v'imchalei chafatzti baretz, as he explained in the previous shiurim, what all of this means. It's not just a ratzoi for something higher or something even more geshmak, but it's ratzoi actually for atzmos, for the essence itself. That is what then creates the whole shuv. And the shuv can be a true shuv because of the ratzoi. Ruach, aisi ruach, v'amshich ruach. That's why Chazal made sure that before Shemona Esrei you have the Psukkah de Zimra, you have the Birchas Krishma, you have the whole introduction for davening. When it comes to the time of the redemption, the future, the Navi says there's going to be a whole new reality on earth. And as he began the Maamar on the Pasuk in Yeshayahu, it's the Haftarah of Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, that kasha Hashamyim hachadoshim ve'eretz hachadosh ashani yosa. Kenyam etzarachem v'shimchem. Going to be like a completely new heaven and new earth. Upirish v'inyan ischatchazu v'b'chinas eretz. What is this renewal in terms of earth? What does it mean? A new earth. Eretz chadosha. Hinini yosa eretz chadosha. Or chadosha ba'aretz. The answer is, Hainu mishum de la'asid lava ila yeshayich b'chinas ratzi da'aretz al derech shuachshav. Because in the future, the Ratzoi of today, the Eretz of today, won't be Shaykh, it won't be applicable, at least not in the way that it is today. Right? That's what you asked in the beginning. What will this look like in the future? So this is literally the new heaven and earth that we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. But first we begin with earth. Because today we have Sho'inyan or Ratzoi vat Shukalatzis me'ahefech. Today there's a tshuka and a desire to go out from the opposite. There's a paradox in Ratzoi. I'm in one space, and I want to go to a completely different space. I'm looking for the transformation. I'm looking for the hipach. Lotzis ma'hipach. I want to go out from the opposite extreme, from the opposite situation. There's a discontentment. There's a sense of imprisonment, or at least containment and confinement, limitation. It depends each person in their own life. But that's what Ratzai really means. Ratzai is the lack of contentment. It's the yearning. I feel that I'm in an Eretz. I'm in a Eretz Tziyav Oyev. It says in Tehillim, we're at a parched land, exhausted, without water. That's what the tzimoyin is. That's what the thirst is. That's what David HaMelech, Mizmel David b'Yosef b'Midbar Yehuda. David was in a desert, physically, and then there's a spiritual desert, and he cries out, "Sama lecha nafshi, kama lecha b'sari be'eretz sivayev b'li mayim." Yeah, you probably know that the Niggin "Sama lecha nafshi" was composed by the Alter Rebbe. You know that, yeah? And it wasn't so known. The Rebbe taught it to the Olam in the early 1950s at a Fabrengen. That's how the Olam found out. But the Alter Rebbe composed it, so you can hear in the tune, right? Tzama lecha nafshi. That's like the ultimate expression of Ratzah. Kama lecha b'sari. I don't want to compete with the Pirchei music. B'yeretz yaveyayev b'li mayim. So that's the ultimate expression of Ratzah. And Ratzah is always, it says, Lotzis me'achoshech, Lotzis me'ahepech, asher achoshech yichas haaretz, v'arofel umim. The Navi says there comes a time, also Yeshaya HaNavi, Peirik Samach, that darkness, achoshech yichas haaretz, darkness envelops, it covers the earth, v'arofel umim, dense darkness covers all the nations, all the nationalities. So achoshech yichas haaretz, not Shamayim. Shamayim, he says Eretz. So b'meila there's the Ratzu, you want to go out of the Choshech. Eretz, Miloshin Ratz. Since HaChoshech Yichas Eretz. And in every person's life we have this in an individual way. A person feels. Sometimes they were literally, like we said, under a rock, or underwater, or in a place of terrible restrictiveness, or narrowness, or in mechanisms of survival and responses that may have worked, but they are so limiting in terms of the person's ability to experience themselves and to experience another person. And the Ratzah is that yearning and that feeling, I don't want to be here. Asura mikan liskarav l'sham, like Moshe says, by the sneh. So this is the Lotzis Mahefach. Kanal kinisker le'el be'inyim psukkah d'zimra. And this is what he explained before about davening. That davening opens up the function of davening is that the person should open themselves up to the inner Ratzah that exists in them. One of the greatest symptoms of darkness is that I make peace with it. It's not dark anymore. Right? I would say in psychological terms or emotional terms, we spoke about this a few shiurim ago, one of the most lethal clippers that a person has is the feeling of blah. Why? Because it doesn't look like an enemy. You're not angry, you're not upset, you're not even depressed. You're functioning. You're actually doing very well. Sometimes at work, it's very good to be blah. You just do what you got to do. You're like a robot. The computer is blah. You're blah. The kineticin bowl. Everything in the room is blah. The refrigerator is blah. You're also blah. You fit right in. Right? It doesn't look like, it's not like an enemy. It's not confrontational. It's not aggressive. It's not evil. It's not monstrous. But it's a killer. But really, it's a clip. It's covering up the Ratzah of the soul. If I don't care about anything, I don't feel anything, there's no disappointment. There's something the blah is covered, the blahness is covering something up. So it's like a certain deadness. It's a deadness that sets in, and it's part of life. We have it. It's this deadness. That's where the Baal Shem Tov says, "V'anoichi haster aster." Right? What's the double haster? So the Baal Shem Tov says, the hester is behester. The concealment is concealed. That's the worst concealment. When I know that I'm dealing with an actual struggle, it's like it's triggering, so like you got to deal with it. The feeling of blindness or these other things, it's not a struggle, it's just But it's the hester is behester. Of course it's choshech. It's a clip, it's a shell, it's so thick that it camouflages the fact that it's thick. It's just... So this is part of one of the great survival mechanisms of the animal soul. It keeps you in check, keeps you detached, it keeps you out of danger. There's no passion, there's no feeling. But that's just an example where the choshech is so choshech that the darkness is dark. In other words, you don't see it. It makes itself believe it's really normal. There's a story they say that there was once a fabrengen by Hasidim in Russia. And they wanted more wine. There was no wine on the table. So the host, he said, in his cellar there was wine. In his martef, in his basement, there was a cellar of wine. So he sent one of the people down to get it. So it was the middle of an intense Verbringen. So he goes down to get it, and he screams, he says, it's pitch dark. So finster, I can't go in, I can't see anything. So the host says, or somebody says, Wart 5 Minuten, wirst eingewöhnt werden zu der Finsternis, wirst kennen sehen. If you wait a few minutes, you become accustomed to the darkness, and you'll be able to see. He says, von dem hab ich meide. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid to become accustomed to this. And it's, what happens is, dysfunctionality, when it's dysfunctional, is dysfunctional. It has a name. When dysfunctionality becomes functional, now you have to worry about it. When something has a label on it, I am toxic, it's nicht gefährlich. This is poison, this is an electric danger, everybody knows, you put a fence. When somebody has a sign, I'm not toxic, I'm not poison, I'm extremely functional. That's vanoichi haster aster. So choshech can come across in many different ways. Always in davening, he says the focus is the ratzoi. What's the ratzoi? To be able to open up the soul, to be able to open up the person to the fact that their soul, their animal soul in their body did not eclipse and destroy and obliterate the ratzoi of the neshama. It's always there, even if it can feel like it's in exile because the person doesn't have conscious access to it. Because it's hard sometimes to have conscious access to it. We get cut off from our own ratzoi, our own feelings, our own yearnings. It's a very, very powerful mechanism of the animal consciousness. It puts you into like a robotic space where you function and survive, and with a sense of detachment. But inside you, everybody knows the feeling of, it's like a deadness. It's like certain deadness that sets in. Some of you probably relate to what I'm saying, no? Yeah. Oh, now you don't relate to it, okay? Besanande matzav. So that was what he explained, that the whole davening is a hachana for the shuv, which is Shemina Esrei, learning, mitzvahs. So the ratzah is a hachana, but the ratzah, that's davening. One minute. So what's going to be different? So first he says what it's not. See how he teaches the pasuk. What is Psukkah de Zimra? It's what we say in davening. In Psukkah de Zimra, the exaltedness of Hashem is in their throat, creating a cherev pifiyos biyadam, a double-edged sword in their mouth, in their hands. Lasas nekama v'agoyim, to take revenge against their oppressors who want to destroy them. But spiritually, what does it mean? That the whole davening is to open yourself up to the Ratzui Telakuz. Rabbi Meskel means the exaltedness of Kel, which is the Ratzui of the Neshama. Ich will dich, I want you. What does that do? It creates a sword, Lasas Nekama Bagayim, in the Guf and the Nefesh Bahamas, to pierce through the veils, like a cherev. A cherev literally pierces, it penetrates the blockage. Spiritually, that's the cherev. Really, Ratzui is a cherev, Ratzui is a sword. It's a sword that pierces through all the shells, all the husks, all the blockages that don't allow you to experience your true, vivacious, profound energy and love, and ecstasy and bliss. The Ratzoi creates a bittul ratzon. That's a funny word. Ratzoi is ratzon. But it means that the deeper ratzon obliterates the external ratzon. You understand? 20 minutes ago, I thought all I want is this and this and this and this. Suddenly you feel what you really want. The old Ratzin. Litzei Litzonis, one big Litzonis. It was all there because I didn't know about my Ratzin. So it became the compensation for the fake Ratzin, became a substitute, a camouflage for a real Ratzin. Like in a wax museum where the wax personality becomes a substitute for the real person. And a person could live their entire life in those Ritzonis. So you're talking about, that's true, but that's the real Ratzon, to bring that back into the Shuv, but to bring the Ratzoi back into the Shuv. Not to substitute the Ratzoi with a fake, with Ritzonos that are superficial. Shuv. Yeah. So he says, Ratzui creates a bittul ratzin b'chinas es hapcha sheichel l'nahira. The transformation of this darkness, choshech yichasa eretz into light. Shezeh ein shayich rak achshav. This is applicable only today. Sheyesh klipois hamastidim. Because in each person, just like in the whole world, you have klipois, you have husks, you have shells that cover up, they block, they eclipse. They're master. Ad sha'choshech yichasa eretz. That's what the Navi says, to the point that the husk can be so profound that it covers your earth. And spiritually means it covers your ratzoi. This is the idea of levushim, garments, clothes, that dress up the soul, dress up the heart, and they're master. So that all I relate to myself only through my levushim. I never touched what is beyond the levushim. So imagine a person only has access to their garments, the things that they're dressed up in. You know yourself from how you're dressed up. You know, you have a Purim costume every day. Actually, Purim is maybe the only day you're not wearing a costume. Purim, you look meshuga. Oh, finally. Yeah, I'm meshuga. Good. I always suspected it. So a person's relationship, sometimes their entire relationship to themselves is through the levushim. The levushim here, we're not talking of physical clothes. Physical clothes is nish gefährlich. You need physical clothes. We're talking of the whole concept of levushim. A person may know themselves only and have access to themselves only through their levushim, amastirim, through garments that cover up, which means in my personality I have garments. It could be toxic parts of the ego. It could be all of the survival mechanisms that a person develops in order to be able to live in a world. And for them, this is their personality. Like we say, this is who I am. Yeah, this is the only part of me that I have access to. And those levushim could be very, very dense. That's what he says. It could be very dense till the point that I don't even know what my ratz is. I'm not in touch with it. Like the Navi Yosef says, I will dress heaven, also Yeshaya Navi Peri Gimel, with kadros. Kadros is darkness. Literally means that the heaven becomes dark. But here it's again the metaphor that the whole world becomes kadros. And that's why Kriya Shema, which is the ultimate culmination of the Ratzi before Shemona Esrei, a whole section in Krishma is a warning, it's a caution. Huzharnu b'Krishma. And here he's referring to the second parish of Krishma, where we say, Hishamru lechem. First, Krishma begins with so much positivity. You should love Hashem with your heart and your soul and maidecha, all the mitzvah of Torah and tefillah mezuzah. And then again, v'hayim shemaya tishmu la'avas Hashem alekeichem, and I'm going to give you rain, and you'll gather your grain and have grass, and eat and be satiated. Then comes a whole section. Hishamru lechem. Be careful. What might happen? Pen yifta levavchem, right? Your heart can deceive you, can entice you. V'sartem v'avadatem. Elakim achedim, and you're going to bow down. V'charav Hashem b'chem. V'atzar Hashamyim. Heaven will stop. There won't be rain, and you'll perish. You'll be lost from this land. And then he goes back to the mitzvahs. V'samtem es dvarei ela alavavchem al-namshechem al-kshartem ha'isam etc. So the Rebbe says it's not stam in middle of the parasha. He's saying a warning. It's expressing the whole inyan of what happens when you live in an internal psyche full of blockages and not even aware of them. So he says, "Hishamru lechem pen yifta levavchem b'sartem v'yishtachavisem piru shekol klipa hamasteres nikras alekim achedim v'avodas kechav." You know, when we look at this, we say, I don't worship other gods. I don't bow down to rocks. I don't bow down to the sun every morning. I don't bow down to winds. I don't worship fish. I don't worship cows. Cows are not holy. Maybe a little money and covered, huh? Exactly. The Gemara says that Bais Sheni already, they didn't have a Yetzer Hara. So the whole thing seems like old pagan stuff that nobody deals with. Other gods, where do we have other gods? So the Rebbe says that's not the Vart. It's a very, very relevant, this is a Hishamru lechem that's as relevant as it gets. Because kol klipa masteres nikras alekim achedim. You hear how he teaches. Every klipa, every shell that blocks your truth, that's Elikim Achedim. That's the other God. That became your God. That became a God. That's the deity. You're living in a place of separateness from oneness, from Einaid Malvada. That is the Elikim Achedim. So you say, but it's just a klipa. What is it? It's a God? I don't believe it created the world. Of course, that's what makes it such a serious Elikim Achedim. If you believe it created the world, okay, so it's like a serious deity. You don't believe it created the world, but you just believe it's separate from the creation. It's separate from the rhythm. It's detached. It's broken. It's lonely. That's what a klipa really does. It puts on this vest around you, quarantines you, and it separates you from the flow of life. You're not in the flow of life. In other words, it makes its own God, Elikim Achedim. It's its own deity. It could come in words that it's nothing. It's nothing. Maybe it's even blah. It's not a God, it's just blah, it's nothing. That's the Elikim Achedim. At that moment, I'm not one, I'm not connected, I'm not in the zone, as they say, I'm not in the flow. What? Verstehst?
I understand, I'm just trying to come up with a real scenario.
He says, Kol klipa masteres nikras l'kim. Person has to know where they're in. It's not a hishamru lechem, some hypothetical issue that you're going to have one day, that you're going to end up in some church. As you're driving from Monsey to Manhattan, you're going to end up in some ashram for a few years. We're not worried. You're addicted enough to your phone that you're not going to go anywhere. Baruch Hashem. We're not worried that you're ending up somewhere, worshipping other gods. But the Hishamru Lachem is as relevant because Kol Klipa Masteres is Nekras Elikim Achedim. This is the inner human condition of choosing every moment where I'm living. Am I living in a place of shells and husks, not connected to my internal Ratzi, which means to my internal yearning, which is D'Reimim Eskel B'Groinam, which only that way can I have the Cherev Pifiyas B'Yadim to pierce through the veils, or these veils become their own Metzias, their own identity. Yeah, the first thing is to notice the klipa. Yeah, what about bowing down to them? Who bows down to them? He says, "Who bows down to them?" He says, "What does bowing down mean? What do you think bowing down means? Doesn't necessarily mean that I bow down, I prostrate myself physically. That also." But he says, "Hishtachava means you're accessing it. You want to bring it to you." In other words, you're giving it credence. Just like in holiness, when you bow down, by Baruch we kneel, right? Baruch Atah Hashem. So by Baruch we do Kriya. It says in Allah, Kriya beBaruch. By Baruch you kneel. What's the point? You're bowing down to something, you're surrendering to it, meaning you're going to become subsumed in that reality. You want to access, you want to bring the flow of Gili Alakus. So Hishtachava, bowing means, it's like I'm bowing to you, I want to get close to you, I want to have this intimate experience with you. So it's basically taking from this klipa, come into my life. I'm feeding off it because whatever energy it has or lack of energy it has, I want it. Instead of looking for the source of energy, I use the cover-ups which have their own counterfeits. Like I look for the counterfeit money. Come, give me a little gilui, give me a little satisfaction. And that's what they're always doing. They're there to be able to fill a void, always to fill a void. In fact, that's how they developed. These mechanisms developed in order for a person to be able to, so to speak, have what they need in life in substitute for who their real essences. Everything is so there's bowing down in holiness and there's bowing down in the opposite. This is what the Gemara says. Yisrael shebechutz laretz oivdei avodah zarah b'tarahe. The Gemara says in Maseches Avodah Zarah in the first Perek Daf Ches. It's a very, very powerful Gemara. Yisrael shebechutz laretz. It's a quote from Gemara Avodah Zarah Daf Ches. The Jewish people living in Chutz Laretz, which by the way includes Monsey, believe it or not, and Lakewood, and even KJ. Even. No, maybe not. It's a suffix. Okay. The truth is that the Meiri writes at the end of Maseches Ksuvos, Kol Makom Sheyesh B'Torah V'Yir Hashamyim is Keretz Yisrael. The Rabbeinu Meiri writes, with his Torah and Yir Hashamyim is Keretz Yisrael. But the Gemara says, Parshas Yisrael Shebechutz La'aretz Oiv De Avodah Zarah B'Tarahem. They worship idolatry with purity. They first go to the mikveh. They put on a gartel, they say L'Shem Yichud, and they're over Avodah Zarah. Well, that's what the Gemara, I'm just joking. But the Gemara, that's the expression. What does this mean? Oiv De Avodah Zarah B'Tarahem. It says our statement, Yisrael Shebechutz La'aretz. And this is written in Gemara that was written in Chutz La'aretz by Jews in Chutz La'aretz in Bavel. True, Bavel has a unique status. The Gemara explains in Ksuvos, the end of Ksuvos. The end of Ksuvos, Kol Ha'olam Bavel. But they were in Chutz La'aretz. And what is he saying? What's the word betara? What does it mean to worship Avodah Zarah betara with purity? I mean, what does it mean to worship it with purity? I go to the mikveh first, I give tzedakah first, I say tehillim before I worship it. What's the pshat? So Alter Rebbe explains a hafludik vart. The hainu, what does it mean b'chutz la'aretz? Remember, the hainu k'shul chas v'shalom legamri chutz la'eretz ha'elyoina shul b'chinas haratzin l'Hashem yizbar b'chinas eretz sheratzasa. Chutz la'aretz means you're outside of your ratzoi. You could start crying from this pshat. Chutz la'aretz, you're outside of the ratzoi. You're outside of the ratzon. That's what it means. The geographical location doesn't matter so much.
So you can be the Chutz La'aretz in Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah. You could be in Chutz La'aretz and you're in Eretz Yisrael. And it could be the opposite. Yeah. We say in Musaf, Mipnei Chata'enu Golinu Me'atzenu. Even the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael say that Nusach. What, you're joking? Mipnei Chata'enu Golinu Me'atzenu. You're standing in Eretz Yisrael. You could be standing at the Kaisel Maravi. Because Golinu Me'atzenu exists on two levels. There's Galinu Martzenu, physical exile, of course, but there's Galinu Martzenu in a way that's much more devastating, or at least equally devastating, and that is, Martzenu, from our Ratzin. From the Ratzin you're Galinu. You're exiled from yourself. There's no exile like the exile from self. Not, of course, chas v'shalom, to minimize the exile of somebody from their home or from their location. Of course, we understand what physical galus is. We're not minimizing that chas v'shalom, but we're talking here internally, spiritually. There's no galus like the galus from self. Yecheskel anavi v'ani b'toich ha'goyla. The Alter Rebbe says in the Torah, the ani is b'toich ha'goyla. Yeah. And what's ani? Ani is your rotzi. That's your ani. Like we spoke last time, shuv is the mission of the soul. Rotzi is the identity of the soul. It's who you are and what you're called on to do. Only when you know who you are can you experience what you're called on to do and do it in the way that you're supposed to do it, because it's coming from you. You know who you are. If not, my mission becomes a completely distorted mission because I think I'm somebody else. So my mission is here just to make me validated by you because I don't even know who I am. So there's always Ratzin before Shuv. When the Vani, when the Ratzin, when I don't know the Ratzin, that's B'toich HaGoyla, that's in the Klippus, in the Levushim HaMastinim, that's the real Galinu Martzenu, that's Yisrael Shebechutz La'aretz, they're living outside of the Ratzin. Shul B'chinas, that's what he says, Chutz La'eretz HaElyoina. There's Eretz HaTachtoina, there's the physical land, of course. Chutz La'aretz, you're outside of the Eretz, you're outside of the borders of Eretz Yisrael. But there's Chutz La'eretz HaElyoina. Eretz HaElyoina means Eretz Yisrael, it reflects the higher Eretz, the higher Ratzin. That's what Eretz Yisrael is. Eretz Yisrael is an energy, there's a divine energy in Eretz Yisrael. That's why it's a land that is so saturated with, endless action, to put it mildly. There's all the energy of the world is there. It's not a simple land. It's the last thing they could say about Eretz Yisrael is, it's just a regular country. The only ones who try to say it's a regular country is the Jews, and nobody else thinks it's a regular country. We come back, what's Eretz? That's why this is called Eretz Yisrael. Every land is Eretz. Right? But America is Eretz. But Eretz Yisrael is called in Torah Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because it's Sheratzas Alasas Ritzayin Kaina. Yisrael Shebechutz La'aretz means I'm outside of that Ratz. So what does it mean to be in Chutz La'aretz? That the person is completely drawn. Nimshach, acher havole. Havole means the vanities, emptiness. Like hevel is like ear. You know. But here havole means the emptiness of the material world. Sometimes it could be permissible things. We're not talking about a person who's necessarily doing forbidden things. Like we gave before the example of the blondness. It's not forbidden. That's its danger. It's permissible. It's permissible things. Technically, it's permissible things. But there's no alignment. There's no connection. There's no ratzah. It comes from what's called toiv shebenaiga, the goodness in klipas naiga. So now what happens is you reinforce the reality called naiga, which is a shell. That's called bowing down. That's what it means. I bow down. I'm actually reinforcing it. Like when I bow down, I'm like, you're my God, you know, Keliata. Yeah, the Gemara says that Zakaf Levain, if a person takes a brick and says, Zek Keli, this is my God, that's already Avodah Zarah. Just a declaration. The Alter Rebbe made the niggin, Keliata, right? It's also the Alter Rebbe's niggin. So he said you can understand if when you take a brick and you say Zek Keli, it's already Avodah Zarah Mechuyev Skilla. So what happens when a Jew says Keliata? That's when he made the niggin, Keliata. That's what they say, the Alter Rebbe explained. So all bowing down is a form of saying Keliata. So bowing down to the klippus in me means giving it is what it is. The shell is there. Bowing down to it, that's what makes it a God. In other words, knowing that it's a shell and a blockage. It's a halbatzara, yeah, this is what I'm dealing with. It's called a backseat driver. But don't give him the steering wheel. Giving him the steering wheel, now you'd made him into the balabas. You understand? You're driving a car, there's somebody in the back that knows nothing about driving. They were never in a car. But all they know is what you're doing is wrong. Take a ride, you have such people in the car. It's called Waze. They always have opinions where I should go. I know better, but Waze thinks it knows better. And they have a woman's voice to really trigger the men. Go here, go there, go there, go there. The backseat driver always knows where you should go. So it would be nice to throw him out of the car, but you can't. It's your family member. So you stay in the car and you're going on a trip to Miami. You know, it's 21 hours. And he doesn't stop till he falls asleep or gets addicted to his phone. So a person has opinions, but the worst thing is don't give him the wheel. Don't give him the wheel. Don't bow down to it. We have all these voices. We have all these clippers. We have all these different shells and husks. That's not bowing down to it. That's put it fine. This is part of what I got to deal with for whatever reason until I work it through, until I transform it. Hishtachava means you guide him tois. Now you surrender to it. You became Keliata. This backseat driver who knows nothing about this and is going to cause one accident after another accident, wants me to take every light, wants me to get lost, wants me to go into ditches, wants me to go the wrong places. Fine, but don't give him the driver's seat. Giving him the driver's seat means now he takes over your life. You take over my brain. You're the one steering me. This is where the tzara happens. You bow down and you lose your spine. You lose your mohus adam. You lose your internal dignity, your internal light, your internal ratzoi, for the fake ritzaynus. Instead of realizing what it is, it's a blockage, it's a klipa that wants to hijack me and literally surround me and imprison me and close my heart. I give my heart away to it and give it to Kiyoso. You're in charge. And sometimes it's all unconscious. It's not necessarily conscious. It just becomes part of the darkness becomes my nature. So that's you're bowing down to it. You know, when you bow down to a king or you bow down to a master, that gives him chiyus. It represents that you're part of him. You're part of him, like an Eved bows down, right? Vayishtachu. So it's a form of respect. Like I surrender. You know, you come to the king, you come whatever it is. Like in the army, you know, you meet somebody who's in a higher rank, you salute. I was once invited by the Pentagon to give a keynote for all the chief of chaplains. So I'm just remembering. So I was walking around with Colonel Jacob Goldstein, and everybody is saluting, and I see there's different types of salutes. Yeah, so I was also saluting. I see him. He says, no, you're doing it wrong. Because every rank gets a different type of salute. And if you do the wrong salute, you know, you can get punished with 300 push-ups. 300 when you're not ready for it could be a little. So he says, you don't have to do it. You're not part of it. You don't have to do it. Don't salute anybody, because if you salute, because the salute itself, it had a whole art. He gets this salute, it's a 4-star general, 3-star general, 2-star general. So what does it represent? It represents a certain form of kniyah, of surrender, acknowledgement, respect. Bowing down, certainly. And that's what gives the king or the master his chiyus, his energy. I'm part of it. I'm loyal to you. I surrender to you. When you do that with Elokim Achedim, that's the danger. V'shtachavisem lahem. They're there. They're there as an opportunity to work through. It's part of a mission. Suddenly I bow down to them means I don't only take them serious. Now you give them a unika, you give them a life force they didn't even have on their own. They didn't expect to get such validation. You give them the haskama, an endorsement that they never had on their own. That's a whole different level. And that's why it's Ovdei Avodah Zarah B'Tara. We're not talking Ovdei Avodah Zarah that they're worshipping Avodah Zarah, they're giving somebody the name God. It's B'Tara, it's with a purity, and therefore it could be deceptive. It can actually look like very religious. It's very religion. I'm actually worshipping God, but you're not. It's Ovdei Avodah Zarah B'Tara. So it's a very dakas d'kinyan, right? It could be my anger, my ego, my narcissism, my dysfunctionality, all for God, but it's Avodah Zarah. It's B'Tara. I'm using Hashem to serve idols. That's Ovdei Avodah Zarah B'Tara, because why? You're outside of the Ratzon. You're outside of the Ratzon. I'm not in touch with the Ratzon. I'm not in touch with the real Ratzon. So it's B'Tara, it's very pure. It's not the gross, vulgar Avodah Zarah. You're not slaughtering children. You're not burning incense to these Avodah Zarahs. You're not pouring your yayin nesach. It's all B'Tara, it's purity. You can go to the mikveh in the morning. But what's the mikveh fueling? Is the mikveh opening me up? Tefillah, the Mittler Rebbe says, Tefillah is oisis habittel. Tefillah is oisis habittel. Hey, Bais Yud Teslamet. That's what real tefillah means. It's going back to the source. Because under the water a person can't live. So it's really like surrendering and then recreating yourself. Or the mikveh is just, it's just I brush my teeth, I go to the mikveh, but essentially I'm not fundamentally opening myself up to my own inner truth, my own inner existence. So it could be Oved Avodah Zarah, but it's B'Tara, everything is pure, and that's P'shat Yisrael Shebechutz La'aretz. The Elokim Achedim can have a lot of different images, what it looks like. And this is a daily avodah. This is a hishamru lechem every single day. That's why we say it every day in Krishma, not once a day, but a few times a day. In the morning, in the evening. This is not a hishamru lechem of some, wackos who are still worshiping some forces of nature. They find an ant or an insect or a turtle and they get down on their hands and feet and worship the turtle because the turtle created the universe. I don't know if there's anybody who believes that the turtles today created the universes. The turtles, somebody once asked a turtle, there's a huge machlokes. When was the Big Bang? 15 billion years ago. Today became 26 billion. They just added like 13 billion years like in a week. You know that. Amachaya, why not? For years it was 15 billion, now it became 26 billion. Yeah. Yeah. So I said in a few years it may be 5785. People don't realize from 15 to 26 billion is a pretty nice, for us another billion, who cares? If you don't have it, right, add another billion. My donation, another billion, you know what I mean? If you have the money, it becomes a problem. If you don't have the money, it's like, not a billion, what do I care? Huh? Give him the building too.
But the truth is, once they figure out that the whole universe is a simulation, that 5775 is actually
a
realistic number.
Exactly. Why am I saying that? I forgot. Oh, so they asked the turtle, the turtle has been around, you probably were there, the Big Bang, like you saw it happen, like the turtle said it all happened so fast, like. So we're not worshiping turtles, right? Because a turtle, fine, you understand the turtle didn't create the whole universe. But it's much deeper than the turtle. I start worshiping the internal mechanism inside of me that had to create all of these personality types and character traits because it felt lonely, broken, not seen, not validated, not loved. That's Elikim Achedim. And each person has to know what that looks like in themselves. And that's really a God. It's a God because it means it's always taking me out from the ultimate attachment with with the source of oneness which pervades every person at every moment. No. Into the hearts. What's the consequence? What's the consequence of this? Again, when we read the Shema also, when you study Judaism, when you experience Judaism the lens of trauma, everything is trauma. It could be the most beautiful thing. It's negative because that's the lens. It's like if my glasses, are tinted, you could be wearing a blue shirt, but I see a green shirt. That's how it is. It's not even a choice. We all look at the world, we don't see the world as is. We see the world from the perception of what we're capable of seeing. That's not bad, that's true. You just have to know that. You have to know that and be open to the fact that maybe once in a while you could take off your glasses and see something else. Or maybe change your glasses. I'm not talking intellectually. Intellectually, everybody will agree with this. I'm talking emotionally. Intellectually, it's easy to agree. Fine, I have glasses. I'll take off my glasses. I'll put on my glasses. I'll change my prescription. But emotionally, to be able to say that. You put your wife in a box for 30 years, for 20 years. You put your children in a box. You put yourself in a box. Be able to say, maybe my entire perception of this person was based on my glasses. Maybe not, but maybe yeah. It's a very, very humbling experience. Extremely humbling experience to be able to emotionally say my entire paradigm, it's not a thought, my paradigm was completely based on a internal interpretation of reality. It's like a person, imagine I'm in a room, my whole life, locked in a room, and there's screens everywhere, ceiling, wall, like you have mirrors everywhere, you have screens everywhere. And the world that I'm seeing is through these screens. That's the only world I see. And now you have to know which channel is it on. Is it the channel of fear? Right? Is it the channel of ego? Is it the channel of people pleasing? It's a channel. And that's where I'm getting all the information from. And all the information is channeled through these screens, and that's what I have access to. That's a very, very real reality. It's a very humbling reality. So when we read Shema or anything else, if we see it through the lens of our wounds, that's what it becomes. So anybody who reads Shema, the second section, it becomes very negative. Hishamru lechem, be careful, because I'm going to get angry, and I get angry very fast, by the way. I tell everybody not to get angry, but I get angry, and when I get angry, like what teachers say, when I get angry, you don't want to be here. I had a teacher in yeshiva, let's put it this way, he didn't have a PhD in education or in giving kids confidence. So he would say, ich hatte geben a frask, as the next Kiddush Levana was das machen auf der Levana. This was his invitation. I'm going to give a frask that the next Kiddush Levana you're going to do on the moon. You're going to actually be on the moon. You'll be Zoicha. You say, Keshem Sheni Yachal and Goyabach. You'll be able to be Neigeya. You'll be able to touch the moon. And Taka, he once gave a frask, and it was pretty close. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. Kashem Shani Roiket Kenegdich, yeah. Why am I saying this? I don't know. Why did I remember him? I don't know if maybe I have some traumas coming up, huh? Oh, yeah. So when I get angry, you don't want to say, you're going to worship, so what am I going to do? Of course, I'm going to stop the heavens, no rain anymore, and you're done. You're finished. No rain, you can't live. Now, the Rebbe here is explaining the whole inyan Yishamru Lechem, the way it applies to a person's individual life. That this one has to be cautious. Because to go from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz is a moment. How long does it take to cross a border? Unfortunately, we all know. How long does it take to cross a border, right? It's Kirichoik. It says in the Tehillim, Kirichoik mizrach memayrav, hirchik memenu es psha'enu. The distance from east to west, he distanced our sins from us. So there's a Chassidish taich. What's the Richoik mizrach memayrav? How far is east from west? Literally, a taich, there's the east and there's the west. What's really Kirchayk Mizrach Ma'ariv? It's a turn, it's a step. I'm facing here is Mizrach, I turn around, I'm facing Ma'ariv. So Hirchik Imenu is Psha'enu, is not a 1,000 miles, 3 billion miles, 3 billion light years. It's a turn. Hishamru Lachem Pen Yifta Levavchem Besartem, it's a turn. From Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz is a turn, and the opposite is also a turn. It's one nekuda. It says in Zohar next week that Shuv is B'shaita Chada B'riga Chada. So Chassidus Taichas Shaita is the word Shah, hour, but really the word Shah means Aker. Vayisha Hashem al Hevel, it's a turn. Lishot. B'shaita Chada, Ein Ker, it's one turn. Yesh Koina, Gemara says in Avodah Zarah, Rabbi said about the Blessed Ben Durdai, Yesh Koina Ilamai, B'shah Achas. Mit Ein Ker. What's Ein Ker? What's Aker? Aker means a turn. Vayar Hashem Kisor Lirois, he turned. So the turn from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz, it's V'sartam. But now I start worshiping the Elokim Achedim in the person's own system, V'shtachavisem Lahem. What's V'shtachavisem Lahem? I give it all the credence, I give it the validity, I give it a yinika, I give it nurture, I give it power, I give it dignity. That's the challenge. It doesn't only exist. The darkness becomes the light. The darkness becomes the substitute for my real God. It's not that I say, wow, this is what I'm feeling. You're aware of all this tension in you, and you could say, this is a clipper, this is a clipper, this is a clipper, this is a clipper. Okay. I'm not going to bow down to you. I'm not giving you my driver's seat. Here, I'm not only scanning it, I become part of it. I bow down to it. Now it gets its real nurture. What's the result? The heaven will be plugged, otzar, and there won't be rain. What did we learn as heaven? I won't be able to have shuv. I'm blocked from the flow. Ratzah and shuv is a flow. There's a dynamic. It's like rain, literally like rain. Rain doesn't come from the sky. Rain comes from the earth. Ve'ed yala min ha'aretz v'hishkas kol bnei adam. What's the system that God made? One of the most incredible systems, how we survive. It doesn't rain from the sky, it rains from the earth. It has to go through the sky. Because the sun, besides all of the other amazing things it does, also serves like a pump. It's a side job of the sun. Besides warmth and light and vitamin D, it also serves as a pump. It's one of its side hobbies that it does, ben gavra legavra, between ben hashma, between shkia and seis, or actually in the morning. So the sun serves as a pump, and as a result of that, it pumps up from all the waters, the oceans, etc., vaporizing the water, right? The vapor comes up, and in that process, it forms into clouds, and then at the appropriate point, when there's enough pressure, what happens? It starts raining. Now, if there were no winds, if God didn't create winds, it would rain, and the water would fall back where it came from. It was suctioned from the ocean, it would fall right back. Because there's wind, so the clouds get scattered. So now when it rains, it doesn't rain in the ocean. The ocean doesn't need water. It rains on the earth. So now everything can grow, the earth can live. So if you didn't have the vaporizing process, you had no rain. If you had no rain, nobody could live, nothing could live. Everything would die, literally. But if you had no wind spreading around the clouds, everything also would die. The rain would just go where it came from. So you didn't gain anything. So everything is meticulously orchestrated. So Hashamyim comes from the Eretz. The rain doesn't come stam. V'atzeres Hashamyim means the earth. It didn't come from the Eretz, and therefore it doesn't come back down. What does that mean in Avodah? There's no shuv, there's no ratzah. I went to Chutz La'aretz. Yisrael shebechutz la'aretz d'avodah zarah b'tavich tachavisem lahem. B'meila v'chara af Hashem b'chem. It's a response. I'm living in a place of anger. There's no shuv means there's no flow in my life. There's no divine flow, like rain. That's what he says. Just like this Eretz Elyonim, this Shamayim Elyonim. What's the higher heaven? That when we spread the hashpah that comes after the ratzah. It's like in a relationship when it falls flat. You can't connect with somebody. It's like everything is falling flat. There's like no heart. When you connect with somebody's energy, the energy comes back. Like kamayim aponim laponim, there's a flow. Every ratzei brings a shuv. Every ratzei, kamayim aponim, it brings a shuv. There's something that comes back. Ruach, aisi ruach, va'amshich ruach. So the earth is ratzasa, the earth yearns and goes up, and the heaven reciprocates. There's a flow. When a person is in a place of anger, it's a disassociation, it's a disconnect. Anger is one of the big, what's anger? Anger is the biggest protective mechanism to keep you disconnected. Right? Really, behind anger, there's always a pain. But anger doesn't speak in the name of pain. Anger just speaks in the name of accusation. If I'm angry at you, I don't need you. So an example, taking a couple. A husband gets angry at a wife gets angry at a husband. What are they really saying? What they're really saying is, I need you, I'm in pain. I'm in pain that we're not close. But to say that is very painful. It's opening yourself up to pain. Instead I say, oh, you're a sugar anyway. It was a stomach today, sick person. Of course I don't need you. You're the sick one. So basically what I do is I create a disassociation, a detachment. But I'm using a sophisticated method. Instead of looking inward, I put it on you and I'm angry at you. So anger is a form of disconnected. So is we become disconnected. The Ratzoi disconnects us from our source. And then I can't have shuv, meaning I'm not experiencing the flow of life anymore. I'm now experiencing like a fake world that I have to create. Because it's the Ratzoi that plugs you into the energy of the divine that now comes back. It's like a relationship between two people. You know, you're open to the person and you really connect. Your heart connects to their heart and their heart comes back. There's an energy that comes back. There's an openness. There's no substitute for it. But imagine we decide that we're computers. So I program myself to say something and you program yourself to say something back, but it's like falling flat. There's no real energy. I can't explain it better. You just have to experience this. If you're a blocked person, you know what I'm talking about. If no, you're not, you don't know what I'm talking about. Better. You're lucky. You don't know what Hashamyim means. But literally, the heaven becomes plugged. I don't have access. Huh? It's a nice question. I once said a pshat, I don't know if it's true, but I saw it says in the sefer called Siach Sarfi Kodesh. It has a lot of Torah from the Kotzker Rebbe. So he says there, it says in Parshas Shmois that Moshe didn't want to go to Mitzrayim to redeem the Jewish people. For 7 days he was arguing with Hashem. And he had every excuse, you talk about excuse books, every excuse in the book. The first thing he tells Hashem is, Mi anoichi, who am I b'chlam? Who am I? You got the wrong address, I think you wanted to talk to my brother, to somebody else. You want me to go to Then of course he tells Hashem, Lo yish dvarim anoichi. I don't even know how to talk. I can't talk. I can't get a sentence out. You really got the wrong guy. That doesn't help. God says, I'm the one who gave a mouth. I could make you talk. Then he says, Vehein lo ya'minu li. Nobody's going to believe me. And he goes from reason to reason. Padre won't accept me. The Jews. Finally, shlach na b'yat tishlach. Just do me a favor. Send somebody else. What happens? Vayichar af Hashem b'Moshe. God gets angry at Moshe. And he says, come on, let's go. Machlokes and Rashi, two shittas and zvachim. If the anger had a result, if it had an impact, if it didn't have an impact, what type of impact? So here's a question. So the whole reason Moshe accepted the mission was God never convinced him. He just lost it at him. Kavayachal, right? That's what it says. Everything he said, I'm the creator. He said, I'll be with you. I'm going to be. I'm going to do it with you. No, it doesn't help. Nothing. Finally, he got angry. The fuse blew. So it's almost like Moshe accepted the mission by coercion. He was running away from God's anger. Now, I want to ask you a question. When you take a mission, when you take a position, because the person who hired you got angry at you, how connected are you to it? The whole thing is ba'inus. So let's say you could force your child to come into your business or do something. How much passion will they have? How much excitement? How connected will they be to it? Whenever you did something because a higher authority was angry and that's why you did it. No other reason. You wanted nothing of it. You said you don't want it. You tried to explain to them. They explained back and you didn't accept it. And then they get angry at you and you say, okay, I got no choice. It's a funny way for God to get Moshe to do this. And you see that once he took the position, it was internalized. So the Kotzker Rebbe says we're reading the words wrong. So what he says, Maamar says it. It says, Vayichar af Hashem bim Moshe. So in English you say God got angry at Moshe. So that's not what it says. Vayichar af Hashem bim Moshe. He says God's anger started to burn in Moshe. It went into Moshe. Hashem's pain of Galus Mitzrayim started to burn in Moshe. So it angeben brennen in Moshe. Oh, he was already a different person. V'chada af Hashem bochem, inside of you. You're going to start feeling the pain of detachment. The pain of detachment you're going to start feeling in you. How are you going to feel it? You're going to look, your whole heaven is blocked. You got the blockage to all the rain. There's no rain. It's like this deadness. Literally, when there's no rain, what happens? The earth just dies. When there's rain, the earth is alive. You know, you could see it when it rains. I always tell my wife, look, the trees are dancing. They're besimcha. You could see they're besimcha. They're chaya. We don't like when it rains because, you know, it's disturbing my schedule. I need an umbrella. But really, it's when it rains, you know, it's the biggest blessing. Okay, not if you're having a chuppah outdoors in the middle of the chuppah. Fine, you can wait a few minutes. But you get the point. That's what changed Moshe. Till that point, Moshe was an individual citizen, a shepherd, obviously an neshama datzilas, meditating all day with God, no question. Suddenly, what does he have with Galus Mitzrayim? It's not his fault. He knows Pari. He ran away from Pari. He was a victim. Suddenly, Vayichaf Hashem bim Moshe. Suddenly, he started to feel the Galus, how Hashem is feeling it. Oh, now he couldn't say no anymore. It's almost like you'll have a mother who's been quiet and discreet and a quiet person, a modest person, living her life. You know, suddenly, Khalila, I mean, we've seen this. Khalila, her child, gets a rear illness. You know, and every doctor says, I can't help. And suddenly you find in this woman a courage and a confidence, right? And words that you don't know where it came from. And the answer is, came from one thing. It came from the pain of this child suffering is now burning in her bones, so her whole personality is out the window. She was quiet, she was modest, she was never confrontational, and suddenly, you know, she stands up to tycoons and to institutions and to infrastructure with single-minded, decisive focus and power. Why? Because the love of their child and her love, not wanting to lose this child, Khalila, is burning in every fiber of her being. Once that happened to Moshe, as they say, you know, checkmate, the game is over, there's no turning back. You know, once you're feeling that passion, debate, yeah, you're good, you're not good, you stutter, you can't speak, you're not the personality, nobody cares. It's irrelevant. I don't care if I could speak. You don't have to speak. I once heard from the Rabbi Fabrengen, he told the Maisa about the Chafetz Chaim, that there was a Exile on Shchita in Poland. So the Chafetz Chaim sent, he was already very old, he sent, I think, a few people to speak to the leader of Poland about it. So they came back, and he asked them how it was. So they told the Chafetz Chaim that the interpreter, to interpret Yiddish, translate Yiddish into Polish, wasn't there. So they couldn't communicate with him. So when the Rebbe gave us came, hat der Chafetz Chaim gesagt, hat Emetze von euch gechallischt? Did any of you faint? Das wird verstanden. Hat Emetze von euch gechallischt? So the moment you hit that moment, lo yish dvarim anei, nobody needs your words. You know, all these elements of Moshe was all out, gone. That's Vayichraf Hashem and Moshe. So that's the idea. V'choraf Hashem b'chem is, there comes a point that you could start feeling inside of you the pain, the anger. of how this detachment wreaked havoc in my life. I wasn't in touch with my Ratzon. How can I be in touch with Shuv? It's only when you're open to the Ratzon that you can experience the flow of life right here. Remember, the Shuv is a response to the Ratzon. Verstehst?
It's a very paradoxical. It's like we use it's the same basically mechanism, but it's either good or bad. So, for example, if you get anger at somebody, it's probably a result of the klippa. And if you get anger because on the behalf of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, it's a result of something. It's the same mechanism of reacting to something, but it's either could be mamish for.
You're right. There's two forms of anger. There's always two forms of anger. Oyhavei Hashem sinura. Those who love God hate evil. There's two forms of hatred. There's two forms of anger. There's hatred that's rooted in love. And you always have to see, how is the love doing? How do you know the sinura is not because you need a lot of help, you're just a hater? Look at the Oyhavei Hashem. Is the heart open in love? If it's Oyhavei Hashem, sinura. But sometimes it's just easier to hate.
Well, sometimes you respond to kids with anger, and the reason is because you love them. Because they do something.
So I could respond with my kids with anger, but what does anger mean? There's two types of anger. There's anger, you're right, there's a paradox here. There's anger that's coming from a very, very profound blockage. And there's anger that's coming from, on the contrary, because I'm open to reality. There's kol hakoyes kilo oved avodah zarah, because I'm not in touch with reality. It's elikim acherim. It's an obfuscation. It's a cover-up of the reality. Instead of dealing with reality, I deal with anger. Instead of dealing with my pain or my loneliness or my shame, what I do is I get angry at you, and in a way it allows me to cover up what I'm experiencing. That's one form of anger. And then there's the anger that represents the upsetness, the pain of a certain reality that is very, very difficult. And there's a grief over there, there's a sadness over there, there's a pain over there. And that's the key difference. And how do you know? If your heart remains open. When the anger is disassociation, the heart doesn't remain open. I'm angry, you come distant, you feel a deadness inside of you. We get angry and we get more angry and more angry and more angry and more angry. Because the heart is not open. The heart is closed. That's what the anger is achieving. It could stay closed. I can't afford to open my heart. That's why I'm angry. My anger is a way of not opening my heart. When I could feel, and that's what happens also with parents and children. At this moment, they don't feel their love. They don't feel their connection, even though it is there, but they don't feel it. They're like almost they're psyched up in their anger and they lose themselves. That's why people lose themselves in their anger. They're not in touch with themselves. And then there's an anger that's actually coming from a flow. There's a flow. I wouldn't even call it anger so much. It's a pain, it's a grief, it's an upsetness. It's not I'm angry at you. I'm experiencing the pain that's happening inside of you. And that's what's happening inside of me. That's v'chara af Hashem bochem. It's inside of you. I'm experiencing your pain. There's a disappointment. There's a pain there. It's hard. It's a very subtle difference. You're right. But you know, because in one place your heart is closed, it's like a deadness, and one the heart is open. When there's pain and grief without cover-ups, the heart is not closed. And as I told you what somebody once said, I would rather experience all the pain my heart has to experience from the reality inside of me, around me, rather than a dead heart. That's the most painful. Give my heart all the pain from whatever it's experiencing. The grief, the disappointment, the aloneness, whatever it is that I'm dealing with, rather than the feeling, oh, you're not dealing with anything, you're good. You're just dead. Flat. In the hospital when the line is straight, it's not a good, we call the Chevra Kadisha. There's no pain. There's no pain. Yeah. You know, very vivid examples between teenagers and their parents. You know, sometimes teenagers go through these phases. You know, they become atheists and agnostics and left-wingers, and they whatever, you know, they vote for this one and for that one. And they know how to drive their father and mother crazy. You know, they start supporting Hamas. It's cuckoo. So either you go to Harvard, you pay $100,000 for your kid to support Hamas, or they could even do it here at home in Monsey or Lakewood. For free. At least you didn't lose $100,000. You just lose your sanity. And they know how to, you know, the fuses, the buttons. They know what drives their father crazy. Worst thing for parents to do is start arguing. They start arguing. They get angry, and they're getting angry for good reason. It's like, you know, you have these kids. They're calling Israelis Nazis. They're calling Jews Nazis because of the last Shaita Russia Merusha on YouTube that they saw. You know, usually another Jewish Meshugana who's traumatized. Usually a professor, yeah. You have to have a PhD to be so stupid. Somebody once said, "I'm not so educated, I can't be so stupid." You know, if you're not educated, you're just like, it's daytime. Sorry, I'm a man, I'm not a woman, sorry. If you're educated, you know, I'm not necessarily a man, it's not daytime. Whatever it is. The world doesn't have a creator, it happened on its own. This cup didn't move on its own, but the whole universe happened on its own, right? The cup doesn't move on its own, but besides the universe, everything on its own. You have to be educated for this. You can't be stupid like us. Why am I saying this? Oh, so these kids, the worst thing for father to do is he gets angry at the child. And suddenly he himself became the child. And it's child versus child. This kid who's really responding to his pain, he feels like a loser in our system. Or he never made it to his father's success, and his father, and therefore his only way of finding success is by calling Jews, you know, by being against everything his parents believe in, and suddenly he has an identity. He has to deal with his own trauma. One day, Be'ezer Hashem, he will. So what's the father supposed to do? Be present for his pain. And say, yeah, wow, that's crazy. You could feel the fuses going, but don't go down that rabbit hole. That's exactly where he needs you to go. You know, you scream at him, he screams at you. You scream at him that he's supporting Nazis, and then he tells you you're genocidal. So suddenly, you know, this Chassidish of father and son two became experts on who's more genocidal, the father or the son. You know, and I say to them, God bless that you both never meet people who are really genocidal. You don't know about what genocidal is. You're two Jews, you know, trying to figure out your trauma. Fine. But you understand what I'm saying? You can go in so easily to that place of anger because it's a very justified place. Like a father will scream at them, you don't speak like this in my house. Get out of my house if you're going to speak like this. And really the father is just in pain. But what is he really in pain about? He's being triggered because this is showing him how he's a failure. Like, I raised a son or a daughter to speak like this about the Jewish people. This is what I raised you for. So it's telling the father, I'm a failure. So it's his own inner pain that's now coming out. V'char af Hashem b'chem, can you actually respond to your child's pain? Can you hear the pain behind your child's words and be present? And then ask yourself, what should you be saying now to start the process of healing? And I promise you, it's not going to happen by throwing him out of the house. It's going to happen through attachment. But for this, are you angry? It's a different type of anger. You're hurt. There's a grief here. There's a pain. But you're hurt from that person's pain more than from my own childhood, my own child pain that was triggered. And now I'm screaming at him. He's screaming at me. We get into a fight and we don't speak for 3 weeks. And what happened now? His position is going to change, you think? He's now going to get worse because now he goes more to YouTube to listen to another few Meshugayim. It's not feeling Rahmanis for him as much as... It's not the other extreme of agreeing. You don't agree to stupidity or toxicity. It's not about agreeing. It's about holding space for the person that they know they did not lose their attachment. That's what it means. Practically, you could say, you know, I really hear what you're saying. I really have another perspective. And why I wish for both of us is that we always remain humble students and open to truth and continue to grow. But with a love and with an understanding. This kid changes his position every 3 weeks. Depends who he listens to on YouTube. Tomorrow he's going to be a vegan. The next day he's going to decide he's a chicken. I don't know, whatever it is. I'm not making fun of lifestyle, whatever, different people. I'm just saying, it's like, relax, okay? As long as he wasn't chosen to be the president of the United States. He doesn't have to make all the decisions. It's fine. So he's sitting in your dining room and saying Narishkeit. But what you don't want to lose is attachment. That's what you don't want to lose. You want the V'charav Hashem to be bochem, not outside of him. So I can get into anger and it's just detaching. It's like it's really triggering something very deep. Yeah, and if I could say I don't care about this kid, so sometimes father will say you're not in my family anymore. If you speak like this, you're not in my family. What did he just do? He dealt with his own pain by detaching from his pain, by saying this kid can't be in my family anymore. That's the extreme example of anger. That's a complete klippa. Where the much deeper thing is to be present to the fact, wow, yeah, it's painful to have a child who thinks that Jews are Nazis. It's very painful. Who thinks that Hamas are tzaddikim. It's a painful reality. It's a crazy reality. He's not the only one. Noam Chomsky is a very brilliant Jew, together with Mr. Finkelstein, Normal Finkelstein. Huh? It's always a Finkelstein, no? Not all the Finkelsteins. Some Finkelsteins are very fine people. Gabro Mate. The more educated you are and brilliant you are, the more sugar you could be when it comes to this. This is Jewish trauma. They're dealing with crazy Jewish trauma that they never dealt with. So it's very painful to have your child join that. Now I want to experience my child's pain, what he's going through. And I may not be able to because it's hard. It's triggering, but at least you can hold space for the fact that he's on a journey, and I don't want to lose attachment because that's where I'm cutting myself off from my real Ratzon. Your real Ratzon is to be connected to your child, not to be disconnected. And your real Ratzon is that your child to be connected to himself, and that only happens when you stay attached, not when you run. And that type of anger is just cuts the umbilical cord forever. Or not forever, hopefully, but for a time being. It's like, I can't deal with you. I can't deal with you because you just triggered my wound. In other words, you took me away from my Ratzon. So how can I be here for you? I can't be here for you. You're threatening me. And I get it. These are very normal. This is Elokim Acherim. This is called Yisrael Shebechutz Laaretz Ovdei Avodah Zarah B'Tara. It's very Tara. You threw him out of the house because he called a Jew horrible names, that a Jew shouldn't speak this way. You don't want to be in such a house. I get it. It's B'Tara. You're a pure guy. You willst haben a ehrliche, koshere, Yiddische Stub. But it's Avodah Zarah. Because I fell prey to my own klippah. I'm not in touch with my Ratzah. V'haraya, when you're going to be in an open space and regulated, and you'll feel your love to your child, you'll say, I was an idiot. I blocked the heavens. I blocked the heavens. I blocked the shuv. I blocked the relationship. I wasn't acting from a place of my own Ratzah. I was b'chutz laaretz. I was in chutz laaretz. I fell into chutz laaretz. I fell out of the Ratzah. I don't know what my Ratzah is. I just got triggered by my own survival mechanism. I can't have a kid who's telling me in my face that I'm a failure. That's what happened. Psachakal. I'm the failure. That's hard. I get it. It's all hard. Nobody wants to be a failure or wants to be a failure. I need a kid to give me nachas.
We need to educate ourselves to be professional failures is a good thing.
We need to educate ourselves to be conscious, to be aware, to hishamru lachem, not to go down rabbit holes of shells, of husks. It's very easy to go there. Hishamru lachem, pen yifta levavchem. The heart can go away in a moment from itself, and it suddenly turns elikim acherim into real deities, v'shtachavisam lahem. Or what? Yeah, everybody is on their own journey. You could do, and sometimes a father did make mistakes that he has to acknowledge. Parents make a lot of mistakes. Sometimes it's completely not about them. Sometimes it is about them. Or it's partially about them. It's never completely about them because every soul has their own journey. Avraham Avinu had a father named Terach. He made a couple of mistakes. He tried killing his son, whatever he did. Avram turned out a pretty good guy. The point is, sometimes yes, sometimes not. And the father may one day become aware of mistakes that he made. But the question is, and now what? Am I going to dig deeper into those mistakes? So in every person's life, this is a process. I'm giving examples with children, but it's an example with yourself, with your spouse, with people you work with and live with, etc. Okay. So, this is what we have to be careful of. Not to block the heavens. Not to block the flow of the rain. Okay, Be'ezer Hashem, everybody have a beautiful day. Be'ezer Hashem, Monday, I hope to finish the Maamar. Bli neder, I hope to finish the Maamar Monday morning, 7:45. Also, if you have children, we're going to have a live streamed program for children Sunday at 6, where children can ask all their questions live with some good stories and science and good stuff on the yeshiva.net, live Sunday at 6. So if you know children or your own children, please feel free to send them there. It's going to be a very geschmacka program, especially for kids. Everybody have a beautiful day and a beautiful Shabbos. Und asach hatzlacha. And alts. So sein die dan notzach. We should see complete victory and complete redemption. I'm here Shabbos, yeah. Ist verstanden? So good.
For things like somebody's in pain, bashing out someone, not because he's dealing with something. So if somebody's happy or whatever, so he wants to make the other person miserable.
That's true. Generally, when I lash out at somebody, screaming at them, the Baal Shem Tov says that every person is a mirror. So I have to ask, what did you just say or do that had such an impact on me? What just happened? Now, there is a situation where you're being mekayim hechech techiach. In other words, I'm connected to you. I love you. And I feel that I should tell this to you, but your heart remains open. The Baal Shem Tov once said, why does he say hechech techiach twice? You know what he said? Before hecheach, make sure techiach, you're speaking to yourself first. Baal Shem Tov's avart. Hecheach techiach, why twice? Chazal say afilu mei apamim. The Baal Shem Tov said every time it's twice. Before hecheach, there's one person you have to speak to before you speak to him or her, yourself. Techiach. What's happening inside of me? Because it's going to be a big difference. If you just triggered my own insecurity or my own wounds, I'm not even talking to you. I'm talking to myself, so I don't have to have a conversation with you. Go to the room and talk to yourself, and then you just avoided mitzvahs teichacha. Because you're actually not going to help them. Mitzvahs teichacha is to be effective, it's not to scream. If you speak to yourself, you say, where's this going to come from? Is it going to come from because I want to help you, I want to be here for you? Now you tune in to what the person needs. You understand? You create attachment. So this child, you're going to start screaming at him. What's going to happen? He's going to run to his room and that's it. It's over. The relationship is over for now. So this is always a conscious, it's being in a state of consciousness of heicheach teichiach. Always.
You know the famous story also.
Made the kavart from the Baal Shem Tov. Heicheach teichiach.
The famous story of Tzanzerov.
The Divrei Chaim, yeah.
He wanted to fix his whole time.
Yeah.
So he couldn't. And he got old. Maybe
Yeah.
I can just work on myself.
Yeah. It's one of those stories they say about a lot of people. So I don't know who it happened with. In Litta they say it about a Bisol Salanta, whatever. But it happened, yeah. It's a good vart. It's a good vart, yeah. I should have started with myself, and by now I could have fixed the world, yeah. Hatzlacha Rabba.
Very relevant to me.
This was relevant to you. It was relevant to me, and I think to a few other people too. Hishamru lachem, we say every day, so I guess it's relevant to everybody. in their b'china. Yisrael shebechutz la'aretz, oivdei avodah zarah b'tarahem. Chutz la'aretz elyoina. The land of Israel, Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, why not the land of America? Yeah, the land of Italy, the land of Japan, the land of Australia, because it's Eretz Shiratzis Alasis Ritzayin Kaina. The state of Israel was from 1948. That's not the old name. They changed it. They made Medinat Yisrael, but it's Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe never used the name Medinas Yisrael. So once the president of Israel got upset, his name was Zalman Shazar. He was named after the Alter Rebbe. So the Rebbe wrote to him in 1969, who gave a right to anybody, there's a name thousands of years from Tanakh, it's God's name, who gave anybody a right to change it? You're tiny to me? I'm not changing it, you changed it. And he wrote to him, Jews always called it Eretz Yisrael. He said, why do we change the name? But then the Rebbe added to him a moide de kavart. He said it's not an issue of semantics. It's a much deeper issue. If you're calling it the state of Israel, it means it was created in 1948. If it was created in 1948, you have no response to the day that the entire world will scream that you're a bunch of thugs, colonizers, occupiers, and thieves. If you have Eretz Yisrael, it's from Yeshua. It's a name from Yeshua ben Nun. then you have a response to the world. That's what he wrote to the president of Israel in 1969. So he won't use the word Medinas Yisrael. So fascinating. That's what he wrote to him. So then he writes to him, I'm not so naive to think that anti-Semites could care less if it's called the state or the land, and if it's 1948, they hate Jews. He says that's true. But for the morale of the IDF and the students on campuses in America, for them it makes a difference if it's moral or not moral. 1969 to President Shazar from Israel, the third president of Israel, and the same thing to Geula Cohen. She was a Knesset member. Yeah, I saw it recently. I'm not naive to think that the anti-Semites care if it's thousands of years old. If they just hate Jews, they don't care. It's not about the truth. But he says a major factor is the morale of the IDF and the students on the campuses in America. It's a long letter, a few-page letter. Why? That's why. Shazar wrote to the Rebbe, why don't you use the word Medinas Yisrael? Like, you're undermining me. I'm the president of the state of Israel. And you're like, don't acknowledge me. It's like, you don't exist. So he said, it's the opposite. Because it looks like I actually care about the security of the land. This change of name was he said it's not only a religious issue. Strategically and militarily, it's a failure. It's a colossal failure. Diplomatically, it's a colossal failure. Unbelievable letter. It's printed in Igros, 1916. It's a Hebrew letter, Medinat Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael. I'm sure he may have used the word. I don't know. I'm sure he used it. The official name is the State of Israel since 1948. The Rebbe said, and what do I care? State is it? What's the same? He said because it was an ideological war. It wasn't the State of Israel stop. It was the State of Israel versus Eretz Yisrael. He said that's a different issue. So okay, you call it the State of Israel. He said it was an ideological one and has tremendous consequences on how you perceive the land. So it's a huge difference. Anyway, this all fits in with the Maamar. Right? Eretz Yisrael is Ratzis Alasis Ritzayin Kaina. It's the Ratzi, it's the neshama of the land. You can't strip the land from the soul. You can't strip the state from the land. It's also a big difference. When it becomes a state, you can start worshiping the state. The same state that built up the IDF, expelled the Jews from Gaza, left Lebanon, made the Oslo Accords. The moment you start worshipping the state, you're in a mess. It's flawed people who made some crazy historic errors. You don't have that freedom to be able to say, yeah, sometimes people can do horrible things. Don't worship a state. It's a very dangerous thing to do. Verstehst? Okay.
Say from the river to the sea, I say from the river to the river.
The Hudson River, which river?
From the Nile
From the Nile.
to the...
Nahar Mitzrayim ad Nahar Pros. Ist verstanden? Da-da-da-ya-ya.